Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Nights Roundtable Live. It is me, Dalton Burdett. Thank you for joining me. We have an amazing show for you guys. We have all kinds of stories. One, from the thumbnail you clicked on, we gotta talk about the Avengers Doomsday cast and why Spider-Man seemingly isn't a part of it. We also have plenty of other stories to talk about, including a new movie from Barry Jenkins, a Harry Potter series has cast Hagrid, which is a very big deal. A ton of stuff to get to, but before we dive into it, there's a couple things I want to go over with you guys. One, if you're new here, please consider giving us a like and a subscription. We would love to do that. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers, and we'd love to get there soon. And two, if you're watching live, if you feel so inclined to participate in the live chat, I'll happily try to keep up with you as much as I can. I am flying solo today, which I'll get to. But also, if you leave super chats, don't feel obliged to, but if you leave super chats, I will make sure that all of them get addressed before the end of the show. Now, as we're talking, you might be thinking, normally you do this with the incredible Nick Iricchio. Where is he? Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, is Nick Iricchio's birthday. He is turning the ripe age of 28. That old fucking man. We're the same age. And you would think, oh, how nice of you to give him the day off. I didn't. He just took it off. Of course, he's just spending time with his family, and he has the day off. But that won't stop me from calling him live on the show. So we're going to do that now. Just give me a second. He has no idea that I'm going to do this, so I hope he doesn't say anything unsavory. Here we go. You'd think I'd have his number up quickly. Okay. Let's do this. Ringing. Flashed his number. Whoopsies. Nick, you're live on the show. I just wanted to call and tell you happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
You're welcome. You having a good day?
Yeah, great day.
Okay, great. Fuck off. And that's Nick's birthday, everybody. Thank you so much for participating in that. We are now going to dive into our live stories. And our first story is an interesting one. And this is something that's been kind of building up in the film community for a long time. And that is that the Sundance Film Festival will no longer be in Utah, where it's been for over 40 years. Now, there were a ton of cities that were up for contention for this new place, but the winning city turned out to be Boulder, Colorado. I'm pulling this from Deadline. It's Boulder. Sundance exits Utah for 2027 move to Blue State, Colorado, and it just kind of goes in talking about the deal. And it also talks about how it almost went to Cincinnati, Ohio, which I was biased towards and kind of wanted to see when, because I was born in Cincinnati. I lived in that area for a really long time. But, the fact that it's just moving is kind of sad for Utah, especially. I'm sure the economy had a huge boost when Sundance was there, and it's just been part of history. But people in Utah are already scrambling, saying, we're going to create a new festival to, not let the economy get hurt. But obviously, Colorado is a very interesting choice for the Sundance Film Festival, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll be a good move, maybe it'll be a bad move. It's certainly going to be cold, I imagine. Utah was probably also cold. But, it's just one of those things where you never know in this industry. You can do something for over 40 years, and then one day, your venue's at a new place. So, them's the breaks on the Sundance Film Festival, guys. What do you think? Are you shocked or surprised that the Sundance Film Festival is actually going to be somewhere else? Or, did you kind of see the writing on the wall? Did you see this coming? What are your thoughts? I'd love to see your thoughts on Sundance as we move on to our next story. And our next story is one that you really hate to see. And that is this. Making a film is incredibly difficult. Now, granted, I've never made a feature film, but I've made several short films. Each one was an incredibly difficult, long, tenuous process. And it's something that, you feel really proud of when you finish. Now, part of making a movie is the fact that you have to have financing. And financing is ridiculously hard to come by. I basically had to go into debt to make all of my short films. But sometimes things happen where your first reaction is, how did that happen? When the reaction should actually be, how does that not happen more often? An example I like to go to is at a movie theater. How many times have you been watching a movie and the power goes out or the projection messes up and actually something gets ruined where you can't watch the movie and you have to go get a refund or whatever, and you're like, I can't believe that happened. How did that happen? When in reality, that theater is running 7 days a week, from sometimes 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. constantly, and one messed up. once a month or something. Like, that's pretty good. But since it doesn't happen that often every time you go, you kind of have the reaction of like, well, how could they let this happen? Well, we now have a major filmmaking version of that. And I'm pulling this from Deadline here. Let me pull it up for you. Simon Pegg's film, starring in the film, Angels in the Asylum, halts shoot indefinitely after a funding crisis leaves crew, producers, and suppliers out of pocket. Essentially, they were in the middle of shooting this film when suddenly they lost all of their funding and they just had to immediately stop. You never see this happen on sets before, but knowing how difficult it is to make a film, I'm just surprised, like I mentioned, that this doesn't happen more often. Let's dive into it here, shall we? It's a British indie film starring Simon Pegg and Catherine Waterston. I'm taking this from Deadline for the audio listeners. It stopped shooting indefinitely after running out of cash midway through production. It was mounted with its financing fully in place and had to halt filming in February, 15 days into a month-long shoot, so exactly halfway. There's no clarity on when production might restart as producers scramble to bring in new financing. And it just talks about the story of the film, and it just goes on. And essentially, as you read the article, what you learn is essentially that, let me rephrase. This isn't in the article. This is just speculation. Pure speculation, not in the article. I was on autopilot when I said that. What I imagine might have happened is, as someone who's just had to produce even small micro-budget things, scheduling is a bitch. It's one of the biggest bitches in the world of independent film. And I'm sure at some point when you have all of these actors in the film, like Simon Pegg, amongst others, you may only have them for a limited window of time, and you got to get shooting. So you probably think, oh, we need to start shooting right now. We don't have all the money yet. We'll get the money. We only have them for a certain time. Let's start. And that's likely what happened. Now, granted, I'm sure as the film resumes production, or eventually there'll be another break in the trades about like what exactly happened to the film, which will be very interesting to read. But this isn't something that you see every day. It's one of those things where, again, how does it not happen more often? Like, could you imagine if like a major studio film, like a Marvel, a Star Wars, a DC, a Harry Potter, or whatever, suddenly was like, oh, by the way, we had to stop making that because we ran out of money. You wouldn't believe what you heard. You'd be like, that's ridiculous. What do you mean you ran out of money? You're the biggest corporation ever. Well, this is an independent film, and shit like that is going to happen. And, hopefully this is kind of like a kick in the ass to indie filmmakers out there thinking they can just start shooting without money to remind them it could all fall apart spectacularly. But guys, what do you think about this British independent film just completely losing money halfway through production and having to just shut it down until further notice? Let us know in the comments as we move on to our next story. And this next one, this is a big win for movie lovers, guys. Recently on the show, we talked about how Glenn Powell will be teaming with Barry Jenkins on a new film, which Nick and I kind of went into talking about, saying that, this is obviously an amazing choice and how these two are great workers outside of each other, but their collaboration tends to probably build something great and amazing. Well, Barry Jenkins is a busy guy. He's developing another film. It's a separate film from the one starring Glenn Powell. And this time, he's teaming up with Zendaya. Taking this from Deadline as well, Barry Jenkins teams with A24 also for Zendaya star Be My Baby about music legend Ronnie Spector, who Zendaya will be playing. Reading more from the article here. Let's see. Zendaya will play the legendary songstress, and according to sources, the star and Jenkins, who'd been looking to work together for some time, agreed on a version of Spector's story that could immerse audiences in what the singer's life with the troubled producer Phil Spector felt like, rather than the traditional cradle-to-the-grave biopic. Now, that's a little bit nice to see that it will kind of be not this typical biopic that you see, because musical biopics, if you really like the artist, they're one thing. But if you don't, they're tougher to watch because they all kind of follow the same formula. If you've never seen Walk Hard, a Dewey Cox story, which is an amazing parody of musical biopics, I highly, highly, highly recommend watching it because they kind of break all of that down. And it's really, really fun to see in that way. But anyway, going back to this. Barry Jenkins, as we mentioned before, the last time we talked about one of his stories, one of the best filmmakers working today, and Zendaya, one of the best actors working today. And if you disagree with me, sorry, it sucks to be wrong sometimes. Of course, I'm kidding. Everyone's entitled. It is a subjective medium. But in my opinion, Zendaya has shown time and again that she's more than just someone who can star in big studio films. She's more than her Disney upbringing. She's an actor to be reckoned with. She's amazing in Challengers, and she's also incredible in the film Malcolm and Marie, which got kind of hate when it came out. I love that film, and I think she gives an incredible performance in it. She's also done great work on Euphoria, which I haven't personally watched, but from everyone I've ever spoken to who watches that show, even people who don't like it, say that Zendaya is fantastic on it. So, she's been proving herself, and the article mentions that they are also, just her and Barry Jenkins have wanted to work together, and that's just talent attracting talent. I can't wait to see this collaboration. I hope it turns out really well. And, it is a musical biopic. And if you're a fan of Ronnie Spector, does this excite you? Do you think Zendaya is someone who could really bring this legend to life? Or what are you looking forward to? I'm very unfamiliar with their work, so I'll be interested in kind of learning more about it as the film comes out. But guys, what do you think about Zendaya and Barry Jenkins teaming on a film together? Especially one about a musical biopic. Let us know in the comments as we move on to our next story. And this next one literally dropped minutes after Nick and I got done filming our episode earlier this week. And that is this. As you know, if you have a pulse in our living, HBO is rebooting Harry Potter, and they're going to be turning each book into a season of the show. And they've slowly been casting, slowly been kind of getting things out. We now know that John Lithgow will be playing Dumbledore. We have a new major piece of casting news, and that is this. Nick Frost will play Hagrid in the HBO series. Now, this is incredibly exciting news. Come on, Deadline, get that shit out of here. I'm going to take some from the Deadline article here. HBO continues to put together the cast of puzzle of its highly profit series adaptation of the Harry Potter fantasy books. The latest major piece appears to be British actor-comedian Nick Frost, who is nearing a deal to play Rubeus Hagrid, Deadline has learned. And it talks about how he would join John Lithgow, Janet McTeer, and Papu Isidu. It's one of those things where the cast is just slowly coming. Oh, and look at this. HBO declined comment saying, "We appreciate that such a high-profile series will draw a lot of rumors and speculation." HBO declined to comment, which means it's true. So that's fun to see. And look, in terms of do I think this is a good choice? I think this is a fantastic choice. Nick Frost is not only a great actor and a great performer, but his presence in most of his films, when he's playing a character that warrants it, he has a very warm, nice, safe presence whenever he's on screen. And that's exactly what I think the character of Hagrid needs. It needs to be someone that you just want to give a warm hug to, that you feel safe when you're around. And I think Nick Frost really gives that off. Even in films that are like R-rated, he has that kind of safe, hugging presence. And going back to kind of more, children's skewed programming, he played Santa on an episode of Doctor Who with Peter Capaldi, and he was amazing in the role. He did such a good job. And, I know that a lot of people are kind of up in arms about the Harry Potter series, and I get it, especially if it's something that's very near and dear to your heart and something that you want to see continue on a way, or not continue, rather. It's something that you hold in high regard and you don't want it touched. Like, you think it's perfect, and I get that. I get it. However, I'm of a little bit of a different thinking, and then I think you're just cutting yourself off to new interpretations of the story, and, nothing is going to happen to the books. Nothing is going to happen to the films. You will always have those to go back to. If anything, when this show becomes huge and it becomes part of the pop cultural zeitgeist, you're going to have people who've never read or never watched Harry Potter who suddenly do because of this series, and I think that's a great thing. And I also think, worst case scenario, it's an awful series that gets canceled after one season, and it eventually just fades into obscurity of like, oh, remember when they tried to do a Harry Potter show that one time? And it's whatever. Now, best case scenario, you have another new adaptation of a story that people have been sharing with their kids, with it's soon to be their grandkids. I think that's cool. I think that's special. And to have multiple iterations of that, multiple versions of that you can share with your family and your friends, really wonderful. Hannah in the live chat, my better half, is saying, I think the new series for Potter will reinvigorate Potter for a new generation. I agree. I think it's a really good opportunity, and I think it'll be fun to kind of, bring that story to light. And I think it gives them a lot more room to not only include things that were cut out of the books, but also make changes to what was already faithful, if they want to, if the story warrants it. Because you already have an adaptation that people are accustomed to. We're doing it again. Let's see what we can do. Because if they make, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone, and it's just beat for beat the same as the movie, in the series form, it's going to be a little bit underwhelming. You got to do something, to switch it up and make it fun, which I think they will do. So that'll be exciting. But guys, what do you think of Nick Frost joining the Harry Potter series as Rubeus Hagrid? Let us know in the comments as we move on to our main topic story for today. And that is this. The cast of Avengers Doomsday has been announced. And not only has it been announced, it was announced over a live stream over 5.5 hours long. Jesus Christ. My experience with it is I was at work, and you started hearing rumblings the night before from some influencers in the movie space that, hey, at 11 a.m., fucking Marvel's dropping something huge, 11 a.m. Eastern. And I was like, oh shit. I'm trying to think about what it could be. And then there were some people speculating this is as big as Robert Downey Jr. being announced as Dr. Doom. And we're like, what? What the hell could this be? And then at 11 a.m., Marvel goes live on YouTube and Twitter and all these other spaces, and it's just a chair with Chris Hemsworth's name. And you're like, oh shit, something's happening, something's going down. And then suddenly, about 10 minutes later, 12 minutes later, the camera pulls back and reveals another name, which I believe was Vanessa Kirby was the second name. And you're like, oh shit, they're revealing the cast for Avengers Doomsday. And then you get excited. And you're like, oh shit, what's going to happen here? Are we going to get the cast? What's going on? This is fun. And it turns into a thing of getting really excited and then suddenly getting incredibly fucking underwhelming because they would release a name every 12 or 13 minutes for almost 6 hours. And I'm at my job. I got this thing in a small corner on my screen trying to work. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, they could have done a press release? What is this? Now, granted, as someone who wanted the news and someone who is in this space part-time, it was annoying, right? I especially feel bad for the people who do it full-time who hopped on when the stream started happening to kind of be there for as long as they could, only for it to take almost the length of a full-time job. That sucks. But there's also this. They were in the news cycle the entire day. People were excited and it got I think hundreds of millions of views, if not tens of millions of views. That's pretty good. I get why they did it. However, it was fucking aggravating, and please don't ever do that again, Marvel. And I don't even think they're done announcing the full cast, which they kind of made it clear with a cheeky little post with Robert Downey Jr.'s Instagram. But anyway, they announced a whole cast for Avengers Doomsday, and that cast includes a lot of people, a lot of very interesting people, actually. And just because I don't want to mess up some names, let's go ahead and get it out here. Let's see. All right, so here are names that they did announce, but what's more interesting are names they didn't, which we'll get to for the main topic of this show. Names they announced for Avengers Doomsday. Channing Tatum, most likely playing Gambit. Amazing. That was a great surprise. Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic. Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom, obviously. You have Chris Hemsworth, Anthony Mackie, Vanessa Kirby, Paul Rudd, Florence Pugh, Wyatt Russell. I'm not going to pronounce Namor's name just because I don't want to butcher it. I'm so sorry. But Namor, Simu Liu for Shang-Chi, Sebastian Stan, Letitia Wright, Ebba Moss-Bachrach, Kelsey Grammer, which was a surprise, but he was also in the Marvel, so it wasn't too big of a surprise. Louis Pullman, Danny Ramirez, Joseph Quinn, David Harbour, Winston Duke, Hannah John Kamen playing Ghost, Tom Hiddleston, which was kind of a fun surprise because we didn't think we'd ever see him again after Loki. At least I didn't. I thought his story was done. This is when it gets nutty. Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, back to back. Boom, boom, Professor X and Magneto. Holy shit, they're doing it. They're bringing in the X-Men, but that's not it. Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler. What? That's unbelievable. That's when I got super hype, is when I saw that. And then you get Rebecca Romijn, James Marsden, and then that's when we go into Channing Tatum, Pedro Pascal, and Robert Downey Jr. Now, obviously that's a lot of fucking names, but there's a ton of people they did not mention as being part of the movie. Now, granted, again, they're likely not done announcing the cast, but they're also going to try to keep some secrets, you would imagine, and I'm sure there's even going to be more people in Avengers Secret Wars, right? However, I have a theory that maybe they did this announcement because this is everyone who's going to be filming outside. So they're like, they're going to know. And I think it's also just to get ahead of leaks as well. But there are some notable people that they did not mention. Starting with Famke Janssen. You're going to bring back Cyclops, so not bring back Jean Grey. That's a very odd move, especially considering in Days of Future Past, both of them were back. Assuming, if it is the 20th Century Fox X-Men, that they're taking them from around that time and not, Logan when they were all dead. Then you also have Mark Ruffalo and Tatiana Maslany, Hulk and She-Hulk, were not confirmed, which is odd, especially for Hulk, considering he's an OG Avenger. Speaking of OG Avenger, no Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye. No Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, which there's been back and forth on if he's going to be in the movie from his own comments. No America Chavez. No Brie Larson, Captain Marvel. No Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. Iman Vellani, none of that. No Tiana Paris as Monica Rambeau, even though Kelsey Grammer's confirmed, which when we last saw him, he was with Monica Rambeau. Odd. But the biggest one, the most glaring omission in this lineup was Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Spider-Man, arguably, is the most popular character in Marvel's history. A character that Marvel Studios doesn't even own the film rights to. They have to make a deal with Sony. And from what everyone's understanding, when they re-upped his contract before No Way Home came out, it was for 1 Sony film and 2 Marvel films. Here's the thing. They haven't done those Marvel films yet. So we all assumed, it's going to be Doomsday and Secret Wars. Those are the 2 films, right? Well, no announcement here. And Spider-Man, if he's going to be in your movie and play a prominent role, you market that. He's one of the most marketable face-fronting characters ever. Like, why would you not market the Spider-Man in your film? Which has gotten the industry and a lot of people talking. Like, if he's not in the film, which is a big if. And by the way, that's a question I put in the live chat here, which Kylixer answered saying that he thinks Spider-Man would be there for a cameo. Interesting. That's very interesting. But something I'm curious about, if Tom Holland is not in this movie, what's the situation? Why would he not be in this movie? That then started circulating a rumor from Jeff Snyder, who famously writes the In Snyder newsletter, who is incredibly accurate, and I subscribe to his newsletter. I think it's very interesting. He's a good journalist, even though he can be weird on the internet sometimes. He had put out a feeler, a rumor, not like confirming, but because what he had heard is that Spider-Man 4 might be happening concurrently, timeline-wise, with Avengers Doomsday. Meaning that Tom Holland will not show up in Avengers Doomsday, but will instead be in Spider-Man 4, which comes out a couple of months after Avengers Doomsday and kind of play that role that Ant-Man and the Wasp played in between Infinity War and Endgame, where it's kind of happening right before Infinity War, around the same time as Infinity War, but then by the post-credit scene, you're caught up. That's a possibility. That's interesting. Especially if you want to tie... Because a complaint that a lot of people have for Avengers Doomsday going in is that this doesn't feel built up to, like the Infinity Saga did. Well, if you want to say that the real build-up is Secret Wars, having it be a 3-part story of Avengers Doomsday, Spider-Man 4, Avengers Secret Wars, you can kind of get some more build-up in there. Interesting, I get it. But now you're kind of running the risk of people losing interest, because it's what's very clear is that the market is different than it was, 7 years ago in regards to superhero media, superhero movies, Marvel specifically, and that these aren't guaranteed billion-dollar hits anymore. They have to kind of earn the audience back in that way because they've oversaturated the market with their Disney Plus shows and a couple of movies that weren't as good as they should have been, right? That's the position they're in. You would think being in that position, you'd want to get Spider-Man, your big character, to the forefront. Now, they are getting Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. Understandable. They probably feel safe. But with that, one of the first things that people started speculating about when that was announced was, oh shit, Spider-Man's going to be devastated that someone who looks like Tony Stark is going to be such an evil asshole. Well, are we not going to get that for an entire film now? That seems like an odd choice. Now, granted, they could build up to that if he's not in the film, And maybe Doctor Doom is briefly in Spider-Man 4 and then in Secret Wars when they have their big confrontation. That's a possibility. That is a possibility. But I don't know if it's the right move. Now, granted, he could still end up being in the movie, which is true. He could also not be in the film, but Spider-Man 4 ties heavily into both movies. We still don't know. Now, the last Spider-Man film was multiversal. And I know a lot of people, myself included, have wanted this new film to be, not that. They wanted it to be street level, maybe tie in with the Daredevil, especially with the amazing series that it has going on right now, and the storyline that would fit with Spider-Man, taking on Kingpin. We've always wanted to see Spider-Man fight Kingpin in a movie. But if it ties into Doomsday and Secret Wars, and these films are obviously multiversal, considering the fact that the cast of the X-Men are in them, does that mean we will get Tobey and Andrew in Spider-Man 4 again? And that was the deal that maybe had to happen to make sure that they both could also be in Avengers Secret Wars. Because Marvel can't just use them outright. They'd have to get Sony's permission for that as well. Possible. It's an interesting theory. It's just weird, It's weird to think about that we could get an Avengers movie without Spider-Man, considering that once we got Spider-Man, it was like, why let this go? Because for a while we didn't have Spider-Man, but Marvel was doing a great job with their movies, a great job with their stories. They didn't need him. They really didn't. But when you got him, don't take him away. Don't get rid of him. Now, granted, maybe they're developing an incredible story in which Spider-Man does not fit. And you have to save him for Secret Wars along with Spider-Man 4. Possible. I do think it might have something to do with him filming the Odyssey currently, but I also think that that's a reason why they haven't announced a lot of other cast members, is because they're probably finishing up stuff and then they're going to still show up in these films. I honestly think the people that they show chairs of are people that have just finished their contracts. Because something else that's no secret, and Marvel and Disney will probably deny this if they're asked about it later on, but the script for this movie is not locked. A lot of insiders have been reporting that the script for Doomsday is not locked, and that they're going to be trying to still get people in as they can through that filming block. And you might be thinking, well, isn't that bad for the story? Possibly, but Iron Man barely had a script when they shot it. That movie's amazing. And this is something that Marvel kind of feels in their wheelhouse when they're changing things on the fly. And not in a way of, we're in a bad situation, we need to get out like Captain America 4, but in more of an Infinity War, Iron Man 1 way of here's something we could switch up, here's something we could do, we have access to this person now. And they could do it that way. Now, when I say the script's not locked, and this was talked about on the Hot Mic show with John Roca and Jeff Snyder too, is they probably have all of their locations, all of the sequences of events, all of that is probably done. But who are manipulating and in those events up for debate depending on availability and time slots. Because we also know that in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, now granted this was during COVID, it was a little bit different, the members of the Illuminati constantly changed and none of them filmed with each other. Because for, contracting reasons, scheduling reasons, script reasons, they had to be careful with it. And that part of the movie, even people who don't, love that movie, agree that it was cool that they got to see the Illuminati. I think it's cool that they were all killed, but that's just me. So just going back to Spider-Man, it feels like an odd choice to leave your best player on the bench, but at the same time, if you still plan on putting your best player in the game to score the winning point, as long as you win the game in the end, right? I guess that's what really matters. It's just odd. It's an odd thing. Obviously, as we just get closer to things filming and things coming out, we're going to be finding out more about the situation. And God, Hannah and I picked such a bad year to not go to Comic-Con. We're taking the year off this year to go to Comic-Con, and they're probably going to release so much about Doomsday and Spider-Man 4 there. But we'll be back the next year, so we'll be there before the Secret Wars one. So that'll be a lot of fun. If we even get into Hall H. Christ, that was a mess last time. But yeah. So guys, what do you think? Do you think Tom Holland will be appearing in Spider-Man 4, or do you believe the rumor that they're going to put him in between to kind of be the puzzle pieces for Secret Wars to build that up and get that to where it needs to be? And do you think that cast list is full, or do you think that there's maybe 26 more names that are missing? Who knows? I think that movie could have 50 to 60 people in it. Secret Wars could have 120 people if they really wanted to. So there's a lot to to go on there. So what do you think? Is Tom Holland appearing in Avengers Doomsday? Is Spider-Man 4 going to be the piece that connects them? Or both? Are we going to get all Tom Holland in all three? Because that's always possible as well. Hannah just commented that it's true about us missing Comic-Con. Yes, I know. I didn't even think about it when we made the decision, but yes, that is true. That is true. Well, guys, that will do it for today's show. Hannah's now trying to get us going back to Comic-Con this year. Hey, we'll figure it out. We'll see. But that'll do it for today's show, guys. Again, it is Nicholas's birthday, so if you would like to, please wish Nick a happy birthday in the comments. I'm sure he'd love to see it. And guys, with that down, be on the lookout for some movie reviews this weekend. We're going to try to get some movies in and put some reviews on the channel for you guys. And you can find our review for Death of a Unicorn, which is out this weekend. You can find our review on the channel for that. And again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.